So, and of course, what I want to show you, they are behind the Inquisition, and the Inquisition is well and truly alive today, folks. I want to show you the name of the unholy Inquisition, which they call the Holy Inquisition. So, and you'll see that the Jesuits are behind that. The Inquisition was a group of institutions within the government system of the Catholic Church whose aim it was to combat heresy. Yes, flat earthers, astrologers, truthers, okay? It started in the 12th century, yes, because they started persecuting the Waldenses and the Cathars and the Albigenses, the Lollards, the Socinians, the Collegiants, the Polish Brethren, the well, all of these Protestants, the true Protestants, okay? Martin Luther and John Calvin and King Henry VIII, Pope Paul III funded them, okay? This Pope here, this Farnese. So this was a false, as he funded Martin Luther, this is a false Protestant Reformation, people. The real one was the Waldenses 300 years prior, okay? And that's where the Inquisitions and the Crusades began, to eliminate Protestants, okay? And today, still today, they are doing this, even though they've infiltrated all the Protestants. So Jehovah's Witnesses think they are Jehovah's Witnesses and Protestant. No, they're not. They're Catholic. Anyone who has a birth certificate is Catholic, period. The birth certificate is a parson, which makes you a person. And a parson is one who looks after Catholic property. And the Catholic Church, according to the Unum Sanctum Papal Bull of the Pope Boniface VIII, who was a Gaetani, another bloodline related to the Orsinis, he created the first papal bull and express trust in history, which claims all the souls on the earth, all the property, all the chattel, and intellectual property, etc. Okay, so it says here it started in the 12th century to combat religious sectarianism, of course, religious truth. They use the word sectarianism here, of course, to make it a little bit sweeter, the fact that they are murdering us, killing us, vaccinating, chemtrailing, sending us to war, and they enjoy the fact that we are complicit with their crimes, okay? Here we go. Oh, well, here it is. In particular, the Cathars and the Waldensians. Well, that's exactly who I quoted before. Other groups investigated later included the spiritual Franciscans, the Hussites, followers of John Huss, and the Beguines. And here are the Dominicans. Okay, the Dominicans were the forerunners of the Jesuits. The Dominicans essentially just branched out into the Jesuits, folks. Loyola was a Dominican. The Dominicans were behind the Inquisition. They have been murdering what the scriptures call my witnesses. In the scriptures in Revelation, it says, the blood of my witnesses is being spilt throughout the earth and it reaches the high heaven. And the inquisitors are Dominicans and Jesuits, okay? So replacing, watch this, replacing the earlier practice of using local clergy and judges. Okay, so all of our courts these days, they are the star chamber of Satan, folks. One judge sitting on any judgment seat is illegitimate. This is satanic, it's Catholic, it's the Inquisition. Okay, in common law jurisdictions, there are juries, and there is a minimum of a tribunal of 3 judges to judge any man. Okay, here we see the medieval Inquisition, the late Middle Ages, early Renaissance Inquisition, the Counter-Reformation Inquisition run by the Orsini, the Farnese, the Spanish Inquisition, the Portuguese, they took that to the Americas. There you go, the Mexican Inquisition. etc., etc., etc. And look here today, folks, this is the most important paragraph you'll ever read. Except within the Papal States, the Inquisition, the institution of the Inquisition was abolished, yeah, sure, in the early 19th century, after the Napoleonic Wars in Europe and after the Spanish-American Wars of Independence in the Americas. The institution survived as part of the Roman Curia. Yes, this is the board of the board of directors of the Vatican is the Roman Curia, guys. These are the CEOs of the worldwide people trafficking slave system. But in 1908 was given the new name of Supreme Sacred, oh that's nice, Sacred Congregation of the Holy. Oh, isn't it nice that the murderers are holy? It's great when a murderer kills you under the influence of the Holy Spirit. It's beautiful. And in 1965, it became the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Well, isn't that beautiful that they've got a lot of faith? Yeah, I think I'd like to be murdered and slaughtered and butchered and tortured by someone who has a lot of faith. That will be really comforting. Lovely. What do you think, guys? Would you like that? Wouldn't it be nice? Oh, it'd be a great way to be tortured and butchered and murdered. Yeah. Okay, now what I'm going to do... All right, onto the board. Onto the board we go. So, all right, can you see that clearly, guys?
Yep.
All right. So what I've tried to do here is I've tried to give a map of the world of empire. This is empire, folks. Okay, what does that mean? Well, here we have the linear history, which is probably wrong. The Persian Empire over here at 500 BCE was fighting against the Greeks, we'll remember. And around about here, 350 BCE was when the Greeks and the Athenians and the Spartans, and you know, the War of 300 and Marathon, and the Persians destroyed Athens, and they were headed westward. They needed to destroy Greece because Greece was standing against this eastern overtaking of the West, so that they could launch themselves from these countries here: Spain, France, Great Britain, Holland, Italy, and fund ships and the Columbus enterprise to conquer the rest of the known Earth. Okay, so this is a timeline that brings us all the way to our modern day. So that's about 2,500 years. Now, I'm using this timeline, which is wrong, because it's the consensus conventional timeline that everyone can relate to. Okay. Now, I'm well aware that the Jesuits have doctored our history, and it's wrong. If you study the works of Anatoly Fomenko, I have his books back down in Victoria. I bought them about 10 years ago when they first came out, and I've studied them. And basically, this history is Scaligian, and Scaliger was a Jesuit, and they funded the rewriting of history. Okay, so this timeline, this is supposedly where the Common Era begins. Supposedly the historical Jesus, Julius Caesar, and the Julio-Claudian Empire. Then the Flavian Empire started over here in the year 69 when Jerusalem was destroyed. This is 1000. This is when surnames began here. Okay, and this is the papal bull of Pope Boniface VIII, who was a Gaetani, who is actually related to all these families: De Medici, Pallavicini, Borghese, Borgia, Orsini, which is the Maxima family of Egypt. This is an Egyptian bloodline, and Teutonic as well, Germanic. Okay, these were the Huns and the sackers of Rome, part of this family, and that's their red shield. And this is one of the most important families as well, the Colonna family. These families were fighting and bloodshedding, trying to get popes on the throne in Rome for hundreds of years, and then finally by papal bull, they had to stop killing each other. Okay, and they had to intermarry, and that's really what started the intermarrying of these families so they could consolidate their power, and they created what's called the Fondi. The Fondi in Venice and Genova. Here is Florence, and here is Rome, and below here is Siena, and those 5 cities are the most powerful banking cities in the world. The oldest bank in the world is from Siena, okay? And it's still around today. It's about to go bust. All of their banks are about to go bust. It's a bubble, a big Ponzi bubble designed to go bust. Now, what's the Fondi? They are the funds. They consolidated all their funds and money, and they financed the overtaking and conquering of other lands, Australia, the Americas, etc. They are the conquistador families. These are the conquistadors, folks. Pizarro, Cortez, all of these bloody murderers. They brought viruses over across the Atlantic, and they spread viruses to decimate the indigenous people and the original black people, because very, very few black slaves were brought over from Africa to America. The black people, the Washita people, for example, down there in the Louisiana area, they were there since time immemorial. The Moroccan or black African Americans, they are the originals, along with the other indigenous Indian bloodlines, okay? So these people had known all along that the indigenous people were God-fearing people and good people, but they created, as we will see, papal bulls to diminish their status to the status of animal so that they could murder them, okay? Now, so these are the 7 empires. This is the timeline, and here we have all the 7 empires. We have Egypt down here, the first. Okay, so Egypt was one of the, supposedly the first, so we put number 1 here. Now, I don't agree with this timeline, but I'm just going to do it as history has been teaching us in our schools, okay? Then Assyria, number 2, then Babylon, number 3, then Persia, number 4, then Greece, number 5, then Rome, number 6, then the Anglo-American World Empire, number 7. There they are, all right? So they're all localized here on the whiteboard. And what you'll see, though, folks, is that most of these empires were contemporaneous. It didn't... what they'll teach you is that Egypt was the world empire thousands of years ago, so about 4,000 years ago, and then the Assyrians conquered Egypt, and then they became the world empire. And then Babylon destroyed Assyria, and then the Medes and the Persians. I should have mentioned the Medes. I forgot to mention the Medes, okay? See that Mede is carried through here in the Medici family, okay? And they control the media, and they control medicine. Medici in Italian means medicina, medicine. So they are behind big pharma, poisoning us with chemical drugs, and witch hunting the homeopaths and the naturopaths, and trying to prohibit them from practicing. They are behind the destruction of the cannabis and hemp industry. Henry Ford was making cars out of hemp. Hemp and cannabis is known to cure all things. It's the most medicinal thing. These people are behind big pharma, folks, and the media, Medici, okay? And they come from the Medo-Persian Empire. It was a double-headed empire. Very important to understand this. So the Farneses, from Farsi Persia are related to the Medicis from Media. Okay, so what we're going to learn is that from eastward they came to conquer these lands and establish an empire, the Roman Empire, so that they could launch themselves from there, and then they would have control of the whole plain. Okay, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of that history and show how all of this happened. Now, what you'll find is that in modern day Kazakhstan was basically where the footprint of Khazaria was. Okay, now the Khazarians are very important in this too, because they actually are also from these Medo-Persian bloodlines, because the intention was to conquer these good people of Europe who had Christianity and Druidism and all of their ancient, beautiful religious science intact, and they were happy, and they didn't have the same empire dominating intention as the Easterners did. Or should I say, as certain families who were able to acquire a lot of money within those empires, and their intention was to conquer the whole world. Okay, so what happened was the Persians became the Parthians, and the Parthians were fighting basically Rome. When the Roman Empire was established, they still had enemies in the east, and that was Parthia. And then the Parthians also conquered Turkey here and became the Lydians. Now the Lydians, they established themselves in Sardis. That was their headquarters here, and they would go across here and wreak havoc on the Greek mainland, the Athenians. But the Greeks were invincible, and the Greeks consider themselves to be the descendants of Atlantis, by the way. And so Byzantium, also these Parthians and Lydians also morphed into Byzantium, okay? And this was the eastern headquarters of Rome for 1,000 years. So this is Rome, okay? Now, what happened was the Persians lost the war with the Greeks. The Greek Empire the Greeks conquered the Persians, and so the Greek Empire started from southern Italy here and came all the way back, all the way over to India. Alexander the Great, we know, actually penetrated India. That's how vast the Greek Empire was. Now, but what they did was they were very clever. The Farnese family, they set up 12 flagship cities in the region of Tuscany here, together with the Orsinis. And they created the Etruscan Empire, okay? So that's where people get confused. They often claim that the Etruscans came from Turkey. And of course, Troy, supposedly, the Battle of Troy was over here. And of course, the Greeks, the Spartans and everything went to Troy, supposedly. And then Aeneas, one of the princes of Troy, once Troy was defeated, he went straight over to Rome, and he was the forefather of Romulus and Remus. Of course, this is just pure mythology, okay? There's no literal truth in this at all. But that's how they present their history, because these Persian families who set up Tuscany, then they set up Rome. And then they destroyed the Etruscan Empire and its language, and they made a mirror image of it, which is the Latin language, okay? So Latin goes back to the Etruscan Empire, which goes back to the Persian Empire, okay? So what they did was they set up Rome and Tuscany to be enemies of the Greeks, and then of course Rome overtook Greece, okay? And then they also overtook Carthage, and this is Tunisia, I guess, here. And the Carthaginians were strong in Spain, which was called Tarsus, and the Carthaginians dominated the Mediterranean Sea. So Rome, and they also dominated Sicily and Sardinia. They were very powerful. So in the Punic Wars, to about 250, so around here somewhere, 250 to 150, there were 3 wars called the Punic Wars, where the Romans finally destroyed the Carthaginians and established themselves outside of the peninsula, and then they took Sicily away from the Carthaginians, Spain, Sardinia, Corsica, and all of northern Africa, and they became the maritime rulers of the world. Maritime. Pay attention to that word, because we have maritime law, admiralty law, and it comes from here. All right, and the people who are behind all of these scams are these families. Now, Pamphili, Aldobrandini, Somalia, Breakspear, Este, Conti, Kiji, are the families behind the funds, the money. These are the money families, and these families, you'll find that there's a lot of ancient royal Greek blood in them.
The top of the board is a bit out of blood.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ceres. Sorry, it's very cold here in the mornings, and it gets warm in a minute, but without me jackets and hat, I'm freezing. So you'll find that there's a lot of Egyptian, Babylonian. Of course, when the Lydians established themselves in Italy so that they could have a backdoor to Greece and then destroy Greece, they actually brought the Babylonian priesthood from Babylon and the Babylonian slave system. They brought that to Italy. So Babylon the Great is headquartered in Italy, and that happened via the Lydians that went from Sardis and Pergamum, the seat of Satan in Revelation, Pergamum, and established themselves here. Babylon rules from here. Okay, the cardinals of Rome are the cardinals of the Babylonian system. Now, Aldobrandini. It's another way of saying Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the eye of the bull. It's the 13th brightest star in the sky. Very significant, 13. Aldebaran. It's a red star. There's only 4 red stars in the sky. Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, gives you the name Aldobrandini. So they're telling you where they come from. They are Mithraic. They are Zoroastrian. And they come from Persia. Pallavicini. If you speak Italian, that's a dead giveaway. Can't mistake that one. Pallavicini. Palla is Allah. Okay. And vicini, well, that means close to. Vicinity gives you the word vicinity. So, and of course, Palla is also from Pallas Athena, Apollo, and all of these other gods and things. But Allah comes from Apollo, okay, and Pallas Athena. So these are the people who created Islam and control it today. And I'll just show you some proof of that. Let's do this. Pallavicini in Google and Islam. Put those words in. Pallavicini family and Islam. And then click on videos and you will see. Let's have a look at this. I'm going to share my screen again. Having fun, guys?
Interesting, Santos.
Sorry?
For sure.
Interesting.
All right, can
People
you see
haven't
this?
heard all this. You're just watching it, aren't you? Watching you explain it all.
Yeah, okay. All right, so see what I've done here? Can you see this? Can you see this, folks, friends?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's showing Santos.
Okay. Okay. So here we have, I've just punched in Pallavicini in Google or start page and click videos. Have a look at this. Islam. Here is a Pallavicini. All these guys, they control Islam. Imams, they are imams. Here is a Pallavicini. Okay. These are Italian, Persian bloodlines. And you'll see the thousands of videos showing you that the Pallavicini are the imams. Whenever they go anywhere, here is a Pallavicini, this guy here. See this one? He's one of the very, very, very powerful men hiding behind the scenes. Okay? They totally control Islam. Whenever they go anywhere near or anywhere at conventions of Islam or any of those countries, the imams bow down to this family because they recognize that this is where the rulership comes from. Okay. Now let's get back. So the other thing is to remember, folks, that all of this belt across here, the Persians consider it to be Persian. Okay. All my Farsi speaking friends, all my Persian friends, they look at me and they say, Santos, you are Persian. You look like a Persian. And I do, and I know that because they say that everything up to Italy is Persian, all along this strip, even the Middle East. And when I was a professional musician and busking in Melbourne, there were many students studying in universities from Middle Eastern countries, you know, from Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and they would come and watch me play. And during the breaks, I would talk to them, and almost always they would ask, "Are you Arabic? Are you Persian?" And I would say, "No, I'm Italian." And they would always say, "Ah, yes, well, Italy's our people, so now we understand why you look like us." Okay, obviously, I don't look Chinese, I don't look Japanese. It's a common you know, bloodline of the Persians that has gone westward all the way through Spain, and they say that. So whether or not you can see that or believe it, that's what the Persians say. Okay, now Borgia. Who's the Borgias? Well, let's have a look at some of the Borgias, shall we? I think I better share screen again because this is going to be very, very interesting to find out who the Borgias are. Let's discover who they are.